All right, so we're live again. One of the things that I've been doing with my Saturdays, and I've been missing some of my lives, is playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, with that, I've had some players drop out, and recently an individual's going back to school, so they don't have the availability to make the normal playtime. So right now, I would be playing Dungeons and Dragons, but instead, I'm able to get back to my YouTube lives. I'm not sure where I'm going to take these lives in the future, and I've debated going back to making some videos, but I think one of the things that I'm constantly finding myself doing is re-questioning and reevaluating, do I want to make a video on this topic or that topic? And then sometimes I come up with some topics and realize I've done videos on those before. So I don't know if it's so much as a big gap between when I do videos, or if it's so much that I'm getting old and I'm forgetting. And either scenario, I think most of the topics that I think are worth making videos about, I've covered most of them. Not all of them. I mean, there's always stuff to talk about. But the vast majority of the videos that I've produced and the vast majority of the videos that have had positive feedback from individuals that folks want to hear more about tend to be the videos that are dealing with spirituality. One second, I'm gonna have to close the door because as soon as I start recording and start talking, the birds just go ballistic screaming. Now, as much fun as I have with birds screaming in the background, I don't think everyone wants to hear that for hours on end. That actually brings me to another point in my videos of why I haven't produced as many lately. Apparently that doesn't want to focus. Fun. There we go. Hey, look, that's me. I find that having birds screaming in the background and then talk about topics that I've covered before makes it difficult. And I don't know. I guess it comes down to what people are looking for. And I like sharing research that I've done. But as I've mentioned many times, I'm an enthusiast. I don't claim to be a professional or a doctor or professor or any sort of a degree. But I find a lot of people making videos just talking about spirituality on a whole. And in some cases, misinformation is shared. Something that is a normal theme in many of my videos and streams is the frustration with the misinformation that goes on out there. And I try to spend time reading and researching. But the question then comes to quality of the research material. And then, of course, I keep playing games, video games and book games and whatnot, so I don't always get through stuff. Like, I started reading this book, which is my latest, and I've mentioned it in videos before, the Book of Druidry. I have read pieces of this, and I'm not very far into it. And I like reading a lot. I also like reading fantasy stuff. Like right now, I'm listening to the audio production of the Dresden Files again, just because it's so good. And this book here was a gift to me well over 15 years ago, and I haven't gotten through it yet. I find myself collecting books, piling them off to the side, and just not getting to them. And I think that's another thing that I've noticed when it comes to modern spirituality. I've talked to a couple individuals that are very spiritual in nature. One of the people that works with me, for me, I don't know how you want to say it. Basically, they're on my team. And this individual is very devout religious individual. I believe they said they were Southern Baptist. They're definitely some form of Baptist for sure. And I had a question about the Bible, talk about the Christian Bible, and then one passage, and I don't remember if I wrote this down or not, but it basically has to do with the creation of humans, right? And it was, God apparently said something like, we will make them in our image or something, and it was plural. And I'm like, that's really bizarre. So of course, when you find something that's questionable, you want to ask individuals that are in that religion or spirituality, that know it very well. So of course, going to friends that study or practice that are usually the first place you want to go with. And I was kind of curious, and I know I've talked about this in lives before, but I was just kind of curious, what does it mean? So my older brother, who is more along the lines of a Christian than myself or my younger brother, because we're not, he was mentioning that he doesn't know. And he was going to ask his pastor about it. Now, he first thought I was bringing it up to be argumentative and be like, oh, look, here, the Bible's wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I'm saying I'm not a Christian. I'm reading this as someone who's interested in what this passage could possibly mean. And I don't remember what video I was watching on YouTube, because I watch other creators, of course. And I don't remember what it was that was the topic, but they had brought that up in our image. And I'm like, that's really bizarre. Maybe it was a TikTok I saw and someone was making some sort of comment about it. But I think it kind of reinforces the idea of this religion and spirituality in general. When you start talking about divinity, maybe there was multiple gods. I mean, there's so many things in the Christian faith that bring into question, but people don't question it. They just take it at face value because they're told that. Anyway, getting to my point, my brother didn't have an answer for me, so I reached out to this individual I work with, and this individual, I have a lot of respect for him. I like him a lot. Great guy. He said that it is God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And that's the Trinity that they were talking to themselves. And I'm like, that is really weird how in that passage they go back and forth between ours and us and yours and all this other stuff. I wish I could find the passage. It's like Genesis something. Let me see if I have it written down in one of my conversations, because I think it's relevant to what I'm talking about for my topic for today, which is about the general spirituality, right? Wow, I've had quite a few conversations about stuff in the meantime, haven't I? Maybe scrolling up is not the best way or easiest way to find this. I wonder if I could find it easier on Discord. I like Discord. Being a gamer, Discord's one of the main things for that, right? Let's see if I can find my work buddy. Wow, I haven't messaged him in a while. Did I send him the passage? Maybe I didn't send him the passage. I know I had written it down at one time because I was really curious about it, because it was driving me nuts. Like, so what's this contradiction going on here? And the main reason I'm bringing it up is because this individual said it was the Holy Trinity as a response. Yeah, I don't have the actual passage written down. I guess I just talked to him verbally. But the point that I'm getting at is that this devout individual had not read the entire Bible. They had been Baptist their whole life, and they have not read the Bible front to back. And I think that's the case for many individuals. So when you were talking about a modern practice, or you're talking about researching or looking through books and stuff, if you haven't gotten through the whole book or books that you're looking at or you're interested in, I don't think that takes away from your devotion to your spirituality in any way. Most evangelical Protestants will say it's the Holy Trinity. Hey, Grassland G. Awesome to see you. Welcome. Welcome. Good to see you. I'm not surprised. I wish I had the passage. It's driving me nuts now. We can find it, I think, pretty easily. And I think there's like Biblegate.com, where it has like all the different versions of the Bible on there. Because there's multiple. Yeah, Biblegate.com. And Genesis 1:26. Read full chapter. Okay. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kind, the livestock, the creature, the animal. That's not the one I'm looking for. It's passage 26. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So in the same passage, goes back and forth from the idea of us and we and our to he, him. It's like, isn't that a contradiction? So the 2 points that I'm bringing this up for is, one, you have an individual who's devoted their whole life to it. We have another individual who's still very devout, and he's in his 40s. And actually they're both in their 40s. But neither of them could tell me what this meant other than the dismissive, oh, it's the Trinity. Okay, that doesn't make sense. And the realization that they have not read the Bible front to back. Which leads me to believe that all religion is up to interpretation. And I think that's why I bounce around so much. Like, I want to find good sources. I want to find good stuff to read, and I want to research it. But I mean, you're trusting that the source that you're reading is an accurate source. I'm finding this a lot in the stuff that, and I always talk in my videos here, in my lives, about Norse paganism. I hate that term. And Druidry, or Druidism. Because those are the two major spiritual topics that I like to dig into personally, because they called me, because of my ancestors, and because I like them. I think it would have to be taken back to the original Hebrew to properly analyze how much mythical, especially you go into the Germantria from there. Right? No, I agree with that. And I think a lot of people don't do that. They don't want to. They don't want to learn Hebrew. I actually get very impressed with some of the Jewish people that I see make videos and content, because they can speak Hebrew and they'll quote the Bible in both Hebrew and then English. And I have a lot of respect for people that do that. I mean, I'm not gonna buy into Christianity. I'm just not. I've thought about it and asked about it and talked about it my entire childhood. And as I grew up, 13, I wasn't really fully grown up then, was I? 13, I started questioning things massively and just turned away from it. It just didn't make sense to me anymore. Christianity is based on the word of King James. For some it is. I know not everybody actually goes with the King James's version of the Bible, but yes. And that's kind of the point, right? So you're talking about a translation and an interpretation. And I think that's why I get so frustrated with this constant argument over how you should practice in modern times, anything. And then it's like, why are people turning to these reconstruction movements? Because you have to put your emphasis, your belief, and your structure around the person who's bringing it back to life or reconstructing it. I don't even think I would call them revivals at this point. Like, people dismiss and ignore the fact that some of the pagan, quote unquote, practices were very cruel. And it's not stuff we do today, and it's not stuff we should do today. And people just ignore that. They forget that. You know, I remember when I was growing up and I was getting into looking at stuff, like Wicca was the big thing. That's all you could find. Wicca and witchcraft. And people are like, oh, we don't sacrifice animals. Well, the ancient pagans used to. Granted, they probably ate them too, because why would you waste the meat? But that's not the point. There's a ritualistic nature, spiritual nature to the sacrifice of animals. And people act like that never happened. Modern pagans do. Like, oh, no. We love nature and we love this and we love that. It's like, how can you talk about a collective if you're not part of a collective? This especially gets to me with the solitary practitioners. How can you speak of the collective if you are not part of the collective because you're an individual. You are trying to speak for people you don't practice with, you're not associated with, you're not learning from. What are you trying to accomplish by telling people your opinion as if you're speaking for all of them? You can't even do that in any religion. Even Christians, from church to church, denomination to denomination, individual member of the church to individual member of the church, they're going to take it in their own direction. That's why I think to a certain degree I've kind of starting to come full circle. For a while there, I was like, oh, this is how it is. Oh, no, it's different. It's different. Oh, it is different. No. It's completely different. It's all made up. Nobody can talk about any of it. Stop sharing misinformation. But then it's like it comes full circle into the point of that's all you have. Your own UPG, your own personal interpretation. I've read this book. I've read this passage. I've looked up this author, and this is what it means to me. And that's what I'm going to share with other individuals. There is a theory that the human sacrifices that the Druids were accused of performing was actually a form of capital punishment. Matthew Carter. Yeah, I've heard theories on that. War crimes, war prisoners, even, like you said, just punishment for their own people that were captured for whatever reason. I have heard those theories. I do know that there has been first-hand written evidence that they had observed humans being killed, and it was done in a ritualistic fashion. But I don't feel like that's much different than someone doing any sort of ceremony, right? You're doing some sort of a gathering, and if you are going to condemn prisoners, either invaders, foreign invaders, prisoners of war, or your own local people that are criminals, you're going to do something over it, right? Technically speaking, if you looked at it in a skewed position, you could say today that Christians sacrifice people. What do you mean, Blaze? If you look at people who are sentenced to death today, and they go through the death penalty, they will have a priest come in and say a prayer over them. They will ritualize, with Christianity, they will ritualize the ending of that individual's life. In that case, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because last rites at a bedside is not the same thing as a prisoner who is condemned, but it's a prisoner who is going to be ended. And if you look at it from an outside perspective, oh, the Christians would sacrifice humans with electricity, and they would fry them, and they would do this in their God's name. I mean, there's this perspective aspect that people don't think about. But the main reason I was bringing it up, it is an undeniable part of the past, and we've moved away from that. We don't slaughter our own meat unless you're a hunter. If you're a hunter, if a hunter prays over the carcass of the animal that they just killed, the deer, boar, whatever the case may be, that they're going to consume and eat, is that now sacrificing to your gods, or is it honoring the life through your gods? Because I can't wrap my head around the idea that you're going to sacrifice an animal and just pitch its remains. No, I don't believe that. I could be wrong, but I 100% believe that these tribal people sacrificed ritualistically these animals, I believe humanely. We have examples in Scandinavia of single blows to the head, or where the head was cleanly severed with one blow based upon the remains of the animals found in these graves, that it was killed humanely, and they would have a feast afterwards. So what do you think they're feasting on? The animal they just killed. It just, I don't know. People want to deny that. They want to get so focused on one way. Hey, J. Woodwolf, how are you doing today? Even modern executions are ritualistic. Yes. You said as I was typing. Right. And that's kind of my point. I mean, like, there was this, let's get comical for a second. I was seeing this cartoon, and it was this raccoon, and basically it's taking these forest animals. There's a town of humans that was built up nearby, and that raccoon was talking about going through their trash and stuff. And he's talking about, I think he was talked for by Bruce Willis, and he's talking about humans worship food, and that they throw out food and all this other stuff. They talking about like the dinner table and how they pray before God before eating the food. They like worship food on plates and everything. It's all about food. And again, this depending on the perspective and the position around what you're talking about, yeah, it kind of in a way is. Good. Awesome. I'm glad to hear you're doing awesome. How's your papers coming along? I think that's that I'm always going to read, I'm always going to research, I'm always going to do my own thing. And I'm going to adapt things in my own custom method. And I'm going to tell people if I'm talking about your paper. You were putting together, I thought you were putting together a thing on the history of Wicca. Didn't you message me about that? Am I losing my mind? No. Yeah, you have it right here. You sent me a PDF of it, Traditional Wicca. I was wondering how that paper was coming along. Because you're putting together a thing with like some history and stuff. Oh, I'm making a video. Oh, I see. So those are notes for your video. I see. I thought you were putting together a paper. Okay. Well, when is the video coming out? I look forward to seeing it. It's coming along. Awesome. Good to hear. Always nice when fellow content creators can have a good conversation and bring stuff out into the light. Yes, notes. That makes more sense. Yeah, no, I'm interested in seeing it. Like I said, I don't mind seeing different perspectives and stuff. One of the things that have really gotten to me lately, and this might get to you too, Grassland G, is apparently there is a huge thing with Germanic Nazi occultism that has been coming up with a lot of the traditions that people are claiming as Norse pagan. And I think that's the thing that's getting to me. It's like, technically speaking, you can make it your own, right? So even if it comes from a source that you personally wouldn't associate with, doesn't mean you can't adapt what you're learning from it. But like the rune circle, like they'll write runes around in a big circle, apparently that's all Nazi occultism. And it comes from List. What was his name? Something List. I think I have that name written down because I wanted to dig more into this when I had heard mention of it. I think it's like Guido List or something like that. I think his name. I don't remember his name. I thought I wrote it down. Titles, books to read, sagas, eclectic. Why can I not find any of my notes anymore? It's driving me nuts. I have this whole section, and I've got so much written down. It's hard to come across. There it is. Yeah, Guido von List. He had The Secrets of Runes, and there's like a PDF out there, and a lot of the stuff that people are doing today has to do with the things that he was researching. Let's say when this was from. This was from 1902. Thought there was more stuff on it too. Secret of the Runes, 1908 by Guido von List. Yeah, but it's like people don't ask where it came from or who invented it or why, and I don't like that. I want to know. I want to know where. Nobody reads papers anymore. LOL. Videos are more easily digestible. Right, Matthew Carter? Guido von... Yes, that's correct, Grassland G. That's the individual I was trying to talk to. People don't read anymore. I try to read. I mean, like I said, sometimes and it's not like I've not read anything since I've picked this book up. It's just the fact that I haven't dug into it very far. And something I like to do personally is I like to highlight stuff and make notes. And it's interesting, as I was reading this, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I think it's interesting that some of the viewpoints of Obad kind of translates over into how I feel about a lot of things. There's this one part in here, and I've mentioned so in my videos, like my general view, like I don't share my personal beliefs a lot for many reasons. One of the reasons is it changes. As I learn and research new things, I change my mind. But another reason that I don't always share my thoughts is I want people to do their own thing, not copy me. Like, it doesn't matter how I do it or what I do it. I want to give you information so you can make up your own mind. I just don't want you to try to claim to other people this is the only way of doing it. But there is this section here. This is page 95 of the Book of Druidry by Ross Nichols. And on the second paragraph on the right-hand side, page 95, the mother goddess is in many shapes. Anna or Dana, the earth, Gaelic. Ceridwen, the dear one. A general name for the Crimic great mother, the trickery, Grian, Newellen, Olwen of spring, the strong mother, Brigid, heir of summer, also the moon mother and the crone, Sibyl, and prophetess, Caridwen, and the nurse of seeds, or autumn winter, and likewise the sow, the old hen, and the hind, not to mention wolf mother. These forms, in fact, comprise some main figures of the Gaelic, British, and Gaelic pantheon. It is less definitive and more shape-shifting pantheon than the classical, and there are literally hundreds of lesser names, mostly synonyms with one another, or shapes of local river spirits and mountain godlings. The functions are apt to be mixed, as we saw in looking at some of the French set. This might not have been the passage I was looking for. There's a passage in here basically talking about how it's multiple faces of the same being, and that was the part that I was most interested in reading to y'all. Previous October's. That's why I take notes and highlight stuff. Could have sworn it was. I know it was something I had recently just read, so I thought it was in one of these pages. If I have to dig for it, I won't. It's going to drive me nuts now. Ah, maybe this is it. Talking about Imbolc, right? February 2nd. I like to do it February 1st. The reason that I like the Wheel of the Year specifically on the 1st and the 21st is if you look at the Wheel of the Year, it is literally starting out in January, right? No holiday. Holiday on the 1st, holiday on the 21st, every other month, right? So January, February, March. No holiday, the 1st, the 21st. No holiday, 1st, 21st. All the way around, which is, again, why I reiterate, Samhain is November 1st, not October 31st. October doesn't have a holiday. There's no holiday in October. November 1st, and then December 21st, Yule, winter solstice. I don't like calling it Yule. Yule is Scandinavian. And that, see, they mix and they blend. Even in the Celtic revival stuff, Druidry, Druidism, Wicca, witchcraft, British traditional witchcraft, all that stuff, they mix in names from other traditions. Yule, or Yule, as you would say it in English, is a Scandinavian holiday. It's called winter solstice, technically, or if you want to go with the Welsh name, according to Obod, Druidry, it is Albanarthen, which is a ray of light, or the light of Arthur, or something like that. So, I'm sorry, I missed some comments here. Video doesn't imprint into my memory the same way as reading, right? I kind of like to do both. Sometimes I like to read out loud, too, and I love taking notes. Writing it helps me remember. There are a lot of parallels between Druidry and Wicca, especially considering the origins of the Wheel of the Year. Yes, 100%. Especially due to the fact that it's like Wicca, if you look at the individuals who started Wicca, and this is something that Jay Woodwolf will be covering, so look, if you don't follow his channel and you are interested in learning more about, because as far as I understand, he's also a neo-Druid as well, and I believe he does some research and study into Wicca and witchcraft, but of course, please correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. But he's going to be doing a video where he's going to be digging into some of the origins of it. But if you look at some of the original individuals who created Wicca, and people argue, oh, Wicca is an ancient and old practice. Prove it. I'm waiting. Prove it. Show me documentation that traces it back before Gardner. Gardner makes some claims, Black Forest Coven, and what was her, Sutterback, what was her name, that he supposedly learned from, but prove it. Prove to me that there is a connection of Wicca that goes back further than that of what people try to practice. Then, if you call yourself a Wiccan today, prove to me that you're a Wiccan who is connected with the practices of Gardner, Buckland, Alexander's, any of them. Prove to me you're connected. You want to prove to me connected? Did you actually go through the ceremony of initiation? Did you have your hands bound and yourself blindfolded? Did you have your genitals anointed by a priestess if you're a male, or a priest if you're a female, and then have them kiss you on the lips? Oh, you're not familiar with that initiation ceremony? Look up Buckland's big blue book of witchcraft. He talks about it in there, and he's not the only one who did stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff in the origin of stuff that people dismiss. So Wiccans today are not the same thing. They would call themselves the inner court and the outer court, right? Back then. So the inner court, a lot of people are not members of the inner court because they didn't share it. They kept it secret. And honestly, a lot of the stuff seemed very suspect to me. And I have video proof. I have book proof of a lot of these claims that I'm making too. Anyway, what Gardner was drawing from is he was drawing from European sources. So we're talking English sources, Irish sources, Welsh sources. They were writing these things down, which directly ties into what one of his friends, and you've heard of his name before, Ross Nichols, knew Gerald Gardner. They were doing research together, as well as Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, I don't know how you say his name. But all three of them knew each other. A lot of people don't know that. So you're going to have a lot of similar stuff and similar themes. So when you talk about the Wheel of the Year, absolutely. But then you see the blending of the different traditions together, and that drives me nuts personally. If you want to blend it on your own, fine. But tell me where it came from. Please. I want to know where it came from. Page 93, in bulk, 2nd of February. This is the earth. It's washing, clearing from debris, and soaking with rain. Purified as Mada. The first plow is usually a symbol for first intercourse. Dana is the mother of men. Brigid is the most practical and one of the most widespread of earth mother forms. And I know there's another spot that talks about it as well, but it talks about the idea of the gods and goddesses. Here, maybe it's on the left-hand page on 94. Lunazda or Lunasan, depending on which one that you want to talk about. Lou again. You can come in. I'm just live letting you know.
Okay. So say a bunch of bad stuff.
Yes, as much as you can. My wife tries to be nice and not interrupt my lives. So birds screaming, and I don't want her to not be able to do what she's working on. So we're going to have a puppy break and interrupted while we're talking about this. And then we're going to get back to the book and other forms. Hi. How are you, Gypsy Woo?
Come on.
Hey, Clea. All right, Clea, going out with Mama.
Come on. Let's
Go on, guys.
Let's go, 'cause I gotta...
Can you close the door? Because the screamer.
I know. She's a loud one.
Understatement. Definitely an understatement. Okay, I apologize. Sorry for that interruption. Lou or Lugna, therefore, and the powerful brigade form. Okay, let me read. Lou or Lugna, therefore, and the powerful brigade form of the mother goddess probably are here. If she was to do the masterful mate sacrifice, it was about now that these weddings attributed to her by Fraser would take place. So they talk about sources and stuff, which I think is fantastic. So the Lunasan here, and I have it highlighted, right? There you go. Powerful brigade form of the mother goddess. Form of the mother goddess. So something I kind of have mentioned, going back to the belief thing, and I kind of got sidetracked. I'll read comments in a second, because I want this to be a conversation, not just me talking at you, is the fact that I kind of view there's this divinity, this divine essence, right? And it's part of everything. We are alive because we are infused with this divine power. And I believe this divinity is beyond our comprehension and understanding. And this, again, is my current beliefs today. It can change at any time as I learn or explore new things. But this has been my belief for quite a few years now. And gods and goddesses are personifications or perceptions, the way you're perceiving this divinity that you can't understand. So we find aspects of divinity that we are tapping into, these certain forms or vibrations or energies. If you're, Brigid is associated with poetry and forge and healing and warcraft. So those symbols and associated with this divine feminine mother is Brigid. And it's very, very important figure and image in Irish tradition. So important, in fact, that the Catholics of modern Ireland did not give her up. She's now a saint. I truly believe Saint Brigid and the goddess Brigid, Bridget, are the same. I really do. I think the mother goddess in that form has shifted and changed with time. And I think one of the influences for my thinking of that way may be a book of Druidry. Because like I said, I got this book like 15-something years ago. I joined the Order of Bards, Zovates, and Druid with their distant learning program, and I've been reading their stuff. I know Jay is a fellow Druid in that aspect. There are a lot of pairs. Matthew said, going back to Matthew's comment from earlier, whomever makes the claim that Wicca is older than the 1950s hasn't read Triumph of the Moon by Ronald Hutton. Oh, I love Ronald Hutton. Do I have it's over on the wall. I've got his Blood and Mistletoe. Again, a professor, an actual historian who can give you sources to build off of. That is what I'm after. Love Ronald Hutton's stuff. The video I am making and doing research for will serve two purposes. One, to share the information on the Cauldron Brew channel and to serve as a Wiccan introduction class to teach my students. I think that's fantastic, Jay. And by all means, feel free to either link your channel directly here, or I can do it if you send me the link. I know I'm following you. Because you do Cauldron Brew, don't you? Pagan Coffee Talk is our other pal. But yours is Cauldron Brew, I believe. Cauldron Brew. I'll recognize it once I get there. Yeah, I'm subscribed to Cauldron Brew. Isn't this you, Cauldron Brew? I think this is Jay. Definitely check his stuff out. If you are fellow creators, by the way, if you send me your stuff, I wouldn't mind checking it out, giving my 2 cents, or just checking it out, period. And if I like it, I will share your resources. I think connecting with other content creators, I think, is a very good way to share and learn together, right? Lift each other up. Yes, indeed, you're correct. Wicca only back to Gardner. What people fail to understand is if Gardner didn't fight for witchcraft laws to be repealed in Britain courts, we wouldn't be practicing openly as we are. You know, and that's fine. I'm not trying to give crap to Gardner. I'm not. Gardner did what Gardner did. I think there's some things that are off-putting to me about Gardner. Gardner was a nudist. Gardner practiced with a group of women. To me, it felt very harem-esque. I know that wasn't the case, but to me, it felt like something someone could do the way he practiced, from what we've seen through interviews and things written, is questionable to me. Alex Sanders creeps me out. Like, listening to Alex Sanders talk in his videos and interviews, and to see him wearing nothing but basically a banana hammock, completely nude aside from that, a headdress and a banana hammock, with his girlfriend's daughter in the ritual next to him, young age, gave me the heebie-jeebies. I'm sorry, that's just disturbing. Alex is supposed to be a student of Gardner, and he makes the claim that he's a hereditary witch, and it was part of his family, and his grandmother initiated him by drawing blood from his scrotum. I'm serious. I've got an interview of him saying this out of his own mouth. But then why'd you train with Gardner if you're already a hereditary witch and you're already a witch? Gardner makes the claim that the Wicca were a group that hid underground and survived, and he was trained by the Black Forest Coven. Clutterback, that's what it was. Dorothy Clutterback trained him. We don't know if she's real or not. And he was pulling from different practices, and I tried to research some of the practices that Wicca does. I did research on Wicca. I could give you a whole bunch of stuff that they did, talking about the Wiccan Reed, the Witch's Reed of Chivalry. We can talk about the elemental tools, the 4 directions, the watchtowers, what tools are associated with which of the 5 elements, the pentagram being symbolic of, there's invoking and evoking ways of using the pentagram, whether the point is up or down. They did use the point down, casting circles, why you cast circles, incense, oils, brews, spells, potions, using a cauldron, drawing your circle out with actual physical stones, different types of chants and meditations, saying things in groups of 3 because of the power of 3. I even have a version of the Wiccan Reed memorized because I really got into stuff and researching this. But then I was able to trace a lot of the stuff back to different traditions. And they drew it from different sources. If you look into Jewish mysticism, a lot of what Wiccans today are doing is Jewish mysticism. Look at Kabbalah, right? It's Jewish mysticism, really is. A lot of the stuff, not all of it. I mean, you can see that they drew from many sources, but I want to know what those sources are. I actually had a couple witches back in the day, back in the 90s. They tried to give me some crap about how they have witches' runes, and these runes are straight up Nordic Scandinavian runes. Now, they're Elder Futhark, meaning they were before the Viking era. We're talking, what, 700 CE, I think it was? So they weren't even used during the Viking era, but these apparently are witches' runes. Yep, I can't remember who I was watching yesterday, but they said Gardner just wanted to see naked priestesses. Yep, Cauldron Brew. Cool. All right, that is yours. Awesome. I mean, he's a guy. Guys like nudity, or not all guys, but I guess most guys do. I think it's pretty fair claim to assume there. I don't know. And I can share the links and stuff. They're here on YouTube and there's other places if you want to see how some of these people used to practice. But this is what people are associating with. You know, and like even with some of the Norse pagan. Okay, so why don't I like the term Norse pagan? The term Norse is something we use today to denote a certain period of time dealing with the Scandinavian countries. So Norse is a very generalized, generic term. It is a modern term. Okay, fine, we can use it. We're talking modern practices. The term pagan itself is from the Latin word, either, I don't know how it's pronounced, I don't speak Latin. It's either paganus or paganus. I've heard both pronunciations. I don't know which one is accurate. And it basically means rural folk or country dweller. And it makes sense from a Latin standpoint that you had the Christian faith being pushed through the cities, and you had your folks out in the countries and the sticks doing their traditional practices. Makes sense to me. So they're pagans because they haven't converted to Christianity yet. And Christians started to use the term pagan to denote them in English-speaking countries. Okay, so far so good. But if you're talking about a Scandinavian practice, why aren't we using the Scandinavian equivalent, heithen, which is supposed to be, if I'm saying it right, no, heithen is name. Heithen Blaze. My name is Blaze. Heathen, that's what it was. Heathen for heathen, and it translates to heathen. But the term heathen, very similarly used in the term pagan, so I don't see why people don't say Norse heathen or just heathen, period. I mean, people can do whatever they want. It's just I don't like to combine those terms, Norse and pagan, together. It just doesn't make sense to me. But then you take practices, and they're basically doing Wicca. Like, they're in America, a lot of the Norse pagans are practicing Wicca. They're just using the pantheon from Scandinavia, which is fine, but call it what it is. I've actually heard some people call it Wicca true as a way of saying it's a blend of Wicca and stuff. But it's like they're doing so many things that are ritualistically. And then it's weird, too. There's this pet peeve I've had lately where a lot of people... So there's a group, there's multiple people, not just a group. There's some group of individuals that say you should only practice what is part of your own ancestry because some of them venerate their ancestors. Therefore, if your ancestors are not Scandinavian, what are you doing Scandinavian practices for? I don't agree with that. I think people can do whatever the fuck they want as long as they do it respectfully. But I don't have a problem with people saying that and feeling that way. You don't think you should practice if you're not Scandinavian heritage? Okay. I don't agree with you, but sure, there's nothing wrong with that. People are labeling them as racists and WS. And I'm like, how do you figure? Like, both of those words, like the racist, and I don't want to get, like, I think they might ding words, so I'm trying not to say the words directly. But when you use that term, that's usually an individual who feels that group, based upon, I don't know, biological, usually skin tone, but biology is superior to others that have a different biology. That's not what they're saying. They're just saying to practice this, that it should be part of your heritage. Likewise, the other word, the S word, supremacy, they, again, try to feel that their own is supreme. And I'm not getting that from these groups. Now, the messed up thing is a lot of the more popular groups that have this mindset are mixing and pulling from other stuff. one of the most popular ones here in America, make these claims of, oh, you have to be Scandinavian descent, but they're definitely not just Scandinavian. And they're pulling stuff from Wicca for sure. They're doing holidays that are Celtic or Irish or Welsh or British, and they're pulling these into North Scandinavian practices. It's like, so you're telling me you have to be Scandinavian to practice this stuff, but you're doing stuff that's not Scandinavian yourself? It's kind of hypocritical. So, but the reason I'm bringing this up is people complain that if somebody brings up that mindset and that's how they feel, that they throw these horrible labels on them. But these are the same people that are defending when they say don't put the chin lines, because a lot of people that get into Norse paganism today tend to look like they're cosplaying. They're not doing anything that looks traditional or modern for Scandinavia. They're doing cosplay from TV shows and games. Mix it however you want, but that's not whatever. It bothers me because they're taking cultural elements to rebuild their practice, and then they're putting cosplay on. But teach their own. Do what makes you happy. But they're saying don't put the chin lines because that's sacred. That's a closed practice. So wait a minute. You can close off a practice under certain conditions, and you're going to label those people that want to close off the practice of Scandinavian traditions, and you're going to label them with the R word and the WS word, but you're going to say that that's open to anyone can practice that, but the chin line can't be practiced unless you are part of that culture. People have this different standard. If you're going to treat it all the same, either everybody can practice every cultural tradition and religion, or they can't. If you're going to silo out certain practices, then leave those people alone who want to silo it out. Be consistent, you know? I don't know. Sorry, I had to get that. I might have complained about it before, but I'm going to do it again. Hello, Alim. Welcome. You jumped in at just the right time. Let me see. What have I missed? Not saying Gardner had issues. We all know he did. But can't focus on the negative side only. If a person points out the negative side, they need to point out the positive. Yes, they had issues. Yes, and I agree with that. And again, I'm not telling people don't be a Wiccan. I'm not telling people Wicca is evil and horrible. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is know your origins. Know your sources. Druidism is okay. I like Druidism. I'm not a Druid in that sense. I like Druidry, the spiritual version, because there's spirituality, Druidry, which Ross Nichols kind of coined that term, and there's Druidism, which Isaac Bonowitz. You all know how I feel about Bonowitz, and if you don't, I don't like Bonowitz at all because of things he did. Did he bring a lot to modern reconstruction Druidism? Yeah, absolutely. But the things that he done are unforgivable, in my opinion. So acknowledge the good with the bad, but know where it comes from. Modern group that he started, ADF, On Funk Train, a Druid Fellowship, completely tries to separate. They probably, if they ever watch my videos, they probably hate the fact that I keep bringing up that Isaac Bonowitz started their group, because they have completely disassociated from him because of what he did. But they still exist and they still have good stuff. So yes, you can pick things out, and I think the same thing can be true for Gardner. Gardner kickstarted a lot of this stuff because he got so popular with it. He got it widespread. He fought some of the British laws. He did good things. But again, I don't know. I don't know much about Gardner as a person. I don't know how much of the hearsay is true and wasn't true. I just feel like he made a lot of false claims that he can't back up, and I don't like false claims. I want history. I can't remember who I was watching yesterday. Oh, I read that. Sorry. Of the Heath, Outsiders, Country Folk. Yes. Hello. What we can do today, learn from the mistakes of the past, learn from it. I believe this may not be appropriate, change it and do better. Yeah, I can agree with that. It's irritating to see folkish believers get broadly labeled as supreme pizzas. Right? Right? LOL, that's funny. Wicca true. Right. Right. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, I feel like people are welcome to their own beliefs. If you want to say that this stuff is part of this cultural stuff, fine. Just be consistent in your views. I don't like the people that are inconsistent. You're going to defend, basically, if anything, these people who are claiming these labels of R and WS on others typically are themselves. They don't see it, but they're basically saying that if your complexion is quote unquote a white complexion, you are not allowed to close your practice. But if you are anything else, you can close your practice. Kind of putting one above the other. Yeah, you are targeting someone based upon your skin color. You are. You're claiming they're doing that because they. See, to me, it's no different than if, like, I am descendant of Icelanders. My mother was born in Iceland, like freaking one generation away from Iceland. If there was a group for historical Icelandic kind of things, right? Like a Icelandic Historical Society for Icelanders to get together and practice Icelandic, eat some of their cooking, share meals, talk about the history of Iceland. And they had a requirement. This doesn't exist. And they had a requirement that you had to be Icelandic descendant, partially somewhere, because I'm not a pure Icelander. That's just on my mom's side. It's like a quarter. And it's through her mom. So her mom, generations were Icelanders. Her dad, first generation, his parents came from Czechoslovakia. Czech side. So she's half and half. So she's only half and I'm only a quarter. But if that was enough for an Icelandic heritage group and they want you to be Icelandic of some form, would you call them R or WS? No, you probably wouldn't. So what's the difference? Maybe you would. I don't know. Maybe people would. It's the same thing if there's like an indigenous, like let's say a specific tribe, like a Cherokee society, and you have to be part of the Cherokee tribe. You can't just be indigenous. You have to be bloodline of the Cherokee to be part of this society. Is that the R word? Because again, where's the consistency? Why are we making exceptions? Either treat it all the same or all different. I don't know. That's my views. I know I'm turning my fan on. I'm burning up all of a sudden. It's getting hot with the door closed. It's just, I don't know. I get this problem with white sage. I made a video on it. I get a lot of responses on it. Like, smudging is an indigenous tradition. And people are like, oh, well, they use smoke for cleansing and other traditions. Yeah, they did. Like, if I believe it's called seining in Scottish tradition. But using white sage, as far as I know, that's specific to indigenous traditions. It's a sacred herb to them. In fact, some of the major producers of white sage bundles for the little witch kits are stealing the crop from some of these native reservations, and they can't access their sacred herb because they're being mass produced. Because it's money, it's a cash crop. Now, that's not to say that's always the case. I've heard people growing it at home, but it's like my biggest point of bringing up that video is there's other ways of cleansing your space other than smudging. You can bless water and sprinkle water around. You can use other herbs and sprinkle those around. You could set up crystals. You could literally just walk with a staff and cleanse a space. You don't have to have white sage smudge sticks and smudge with it. Now, does that mean I get mad when people use white sage that are not indigenous? No, I think you can do whatever you want. Again, I personally think people can do what they want. Just do it respectfully. Know where it comes from. Know where you're getting your herbs from. Like, don't buy from these big producers. Grow your own. Find a local source. Buy from indigenous tribes. Help them make money with their own sacred plant. I don't know. People don't have logic and common sense. They don't. They want to fight just for the sake of fighting. Whatever happened to the ability to talk? So many people want to throw out labels and they want to throw out accusations and they don't want to sit down and have a conversation. I can have a conversation with someone I do not agree with, and I can be respectful to them, and I can expect respect in return. Not everyone can do that anymore. People are so uppity and they get up on their high horse in their soapbox. And it's like, I know I'm bringing up things that are unpopular topics. I don't care. If you don't want to watch my stuff, don't watch my stuff. I'm going to share my 2 cents. And you don't have to agree with it because it's my opinion. Oh, got to reposition. My butt's getting numb. Oh, I'm sitting on my foot now. I don't know how that helps, but it does. But yeah, I talked about a lot of stuff. Open discussion about religion. What other sort of things we want to talk about. I have a tendency to ramble, so Oh, the hypocrisy of the cultural appropriation argument. Yes, yes, that's my complaint. If there is such thing as cultural appropriation, every culture has the right to it. In fact, I've actually made arguments with this before. People will say they use the term white, Asian, black, and Hispanic as large race groups. I don't like those terms at all. Not at all. If you take the term white, there are so many different groups that have a pale complexion, completely different cultures. Different history, different people, different language, different cuisine, different way of dressing, different spiritualities. Tell me that the Polish are the exact same as the Norwegian, the exact same as the Irish, English. Do you see what I'm getting at? Australian? Like, I know they kind of immigrated to Australia because the Aborigines. Anyway, but it's like they're very distinctly different. Tell someone in Ukraine they're the exact same as people in Russia. They're not. So I don't like those big umbrella terms. Because a lot of people will say stuff like when people talk about the Scandinavian traditions, oh, you can't practice asatru. And I'm saying asatru instead of alsatru for a reason. Can't practice asatru unless you're Scandinavian descent. You're basically saying you have to be white to practice. No, they're not saying that. They're saying you have to be Scandinavian to practice. If you were German, well, German might actually potentially work for some of them. Let's say if you were Irish or if you were Polish or Czech or Turkish, they might say that, no, you can't practice potentially. I don't know. I don't know where their logic comes from. I think it's funny, too, specifically with Norse paganism, because it's like, you're telling people they can't practice. They have to be pure Scandinavian. Do you know what Scandinavians are? Scandinavians are mutts. Do you know why? Because they used to travel. You've heard of people today, we call them Vikings, right? Yeah. Scandinavian explorers, travelers, raiders, warriors to get on ships, and they traveled all over the place. Yeah. They mixed cultures all the time. They brought people back on some of their raids, and they mixed with people. Scandinavia is all about mixing. So as out of all of the practices for people to speak up about, they picked the one that was one of the most blended traditions ever. They learned and taught and traded information all the time, settled new places. Dublin in Ireland is a Viking settlement. I'm dead serious. Look this up. Dublin is a Viking settlement. There is a lot of Irish people with Scandinavian blood and a lot of Scandinavians with Irish blood. There is a lot of mixing going on in there. But that's the thing. It's like, why are you keeping it so... So I don't understand the mindset, but I respect their right to have that. And I also respect their right to have that mindset without being called a WS or an R. You might not think that's a popular opinion, and it's not. And I don't care if you agree with it. That's how I feel about it. I think someone who is actually Scandinavian descent, Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, and they straight up say you cannot practice Norse paganism unless you're Norwegian, Scandinavian, whatever. You're Scandinavian in some form, right? I think they have every right to say that. And I don't think they're WS or an R. Just like as if I heard someone who's indigenous, Blackfoot, Sioux, Cherokee, and they said you cannot practice these spiritual traditions unless you were part of this clan, tribe, whatever. No different to me. No different at all. I've actually talked to Hindus, right? So Hinduism is spirituality from India. And I've actually talked to some Indians because in the tech industry, we have a tendency to have a lot of Indians, both here on green cards or people who have moved here, that work in tech. And I've actually had conversations on occasion. I don't know why I have spiritual conversations at work, probably because I like talking about this stuff. And they've basically consider Hindu, to be a Hindu, is the same thing as being Indian. They don't separate it. Like, even though it's a spirituality, no. To them, being Hindu is being Indian. You can't become a Hindu. To some of them. Others, anyone can become a Hindu. Some of them, it's 100% cultural, period. There's no separation. You do not become a Hindu. You can't. I don't think that's the R word. I don't think that's the R word at all. And I think they have every right to think that way. Don't agree with it, but they have every right to it. Irish didn't use smoke cleansing such as smudge. They used water and fire. Yes, they did. That's why I said the Scottish. Scottish used something called saining. If you look up saining, S-A-N-I-N-G, they had a smoke type of cleansing. They did not use white sage, though. I forget the herbs they used, but there's a practice called saining. People just hate on the Scandinavians because they had good hygiene and were getting all the ladies. Right. Right. I enjoy your point of view, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just, I don't know, just sharing my thoughts. It's stuff that I get frustrated about. I spend too much time on an app called TikTok. I make videos on TikTok too. And there's a lot of, you put hashtags, right? There's hashtag Norse Talk. And a lot of them are basically Viking cosplayers who jump on bandwagons for hot topics. And one of the ones I hear them saying is, don't put chin lines when you're doing your cosplay because that's taking somebody else's culture. Same creators are going, anyone can practice North Scandinavian stuff. You don't just have to be white to practice. And if they say that, then they're a WS or an R. It's like, what? So you can't have your own culture traditions? That's the other thing. Oh, this is the big thing, right? Scandinavian traditions, all this Norse paganism that people are trying to do. It's very popular today. It is culture. There's no separation. People are like, oh, I'm a Gothi. Gothi is a word that's usually associated. It translates to kind of priest or chieftain. It's kind of both. A Gothi is a clan tribal leader, but they also happen to be the spiritual leader of their clan or troop. It's a small group family. It's an, your clan. Your Gothi ran your clan, and typically it was a spiritual leader as well. It's not separated. Everything they did, they didn't do what we do in America, where people go to church on Sundays, which the majority of America, most of them are Christians. I know it's less and less, and I think like 30% of the country is not Christian anymore, myself included. But majority of the country are Christian. Go to church on Sundays. It's a separate thing. In Scandinavia, it is part of everything they do. It is how they live their life. There's no separation. When they do stuff, cultural traditions today in Iceland are the stuff people are trying to do for Norse paganism. So if there is anything that is cultural appropriation about practicing spiritual practices, everything about Norse paganism is cultural appropriation. If you believe trying to mimic a culture and adapt it is cultural appropriation, Norse paganism is cultural appropriation if you're not Scandinavian. That's just a fact. Again, I don't have a problem with it. Myself and most of the Scandinavians that I know. Here's the thing. The people who say you can't practice Norse paganism unless you're Scandinavian are typically American. I have seen and heard content creators online through TikTok and YouTube who are, in fact, live in Norway or Sweden. And I don't really see many Danish, but Norway and Sweden are the two big ones I see content creators for that have actually said that, what you're doing in America, you are taking our culture. I have seen some like that, but the majority of them don't care. They think it's great that other people want to embrace their culture. So it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting topic, and it's an interesting way of thinking about stuff. Wow, I heard the Hindu-Indian argument just yesterday. Lots of synchronicities here. Yes, there is. It's just wild to me. People get so caught up on the nitty-gritty details and approval of other people. Here's the thing. When you're in your own home doing your own practice, it doesn't matter what other people think of you. If you want to run around in a indigenous outfit and headdress and smoke a pipe and chant and drum, whatever traditions, I don't know a lot about indigenous traditions, whatever traditions you want to do, no one's stopping you. You do whatever you want. It's when you get online and you get out in public that it becomes an issue. And there's a lot of people who like the virtue signal and defend causes. Okay, well, get behind your cause and be consistent. I'd rather I'll share my opinion, but it's my opinion. What I say does not affect you. You can do whatever you want. And I know that, I acknowledge that, and I have no problem with that. What I want to do is I want to give you resources and information so you can make up your own mind. This is mostly a Welsh tradition at this point. Obod is mostly Welsh. I'm not Welsh. I think if you look at my DNA from my ancestry.com. If you look at my DNA, apparently there is some people in Wales who has DNA matches to me, so maybe I do have some Welsh in there somewhere, but I'm not Welsh. I consider most of what we are to be where we're born, so I'm an American, and then back maybe 5 generations. So if going by that theory, I'm Icelandic, Czech, Italian, German, and Irish. Yeah, there's 5. Yes, I'm a mutt. But yeah, my dad's dad, my grandpa, German Irish. My dad's mom, Italian. My mom's mom, Icelandic. My mom's dad, Czech. So going back, and they came from those countries. Like, we're talking first generation for a lot of us. My mom was born in Iceland. My grandpa, his parents were born in Czech. My dad, this is a little interesting. My grandma was first generation. Her sister and her parents were born in Italy. I think specifically Sicily. They were originally from Italy and they came down to Sicily before they came over, or they had some relatives that were living in Sicily, but southern Italy. And then my dad's dad, that we go back a little bit with. I think you have to go back 2 or 3 generations to get from Germany, and about 2 to 3, maybe even 4 generations to get from Ireland. So they were here for a couple generations, some of them. 2 generations from Ireland, 2 generations from Germany, somewhere in there. And then there's some other mixed in and whatnot. But, you know, for the most part. So if I'm looking at something that's my family tradition, first of all, I'm a mutt. I'm barely connected with anything. Anything I look into, I'm like a quarter of the way connected to, right? So Irish, not even a full quarter. We're talking an eighth. I don't care. I'm gonna connect with it anyway. I like it. I like my heritage. I want to look. My dad was technically a third Irish. Technically. I'm gonna look. The first ancestor who came from Ireland, his name was Patrick Dolan. Yeah, you don't get much more Irish sounding than that. That's pretty wild. But some people might say, oh, you have to be, you know, I'm looking at the Irish traditions. Obod's Welsh. So should I be looking at this according to some people? No, because according to some people, it's in a way cultural appropriation. Don't care. It's my path. I'll do what I want. I like what Obod says. I will practice Obod stuff and mix it in and make it my own path. I'm not a pure Obod druid. I'm my own person. I'm eclectic. I see nothing wrong with that. I want you to find out what works for you. And that literally means every single person watching this video now and in the future. You need to find what works for you. Don't let other people tell you what you can and can't do. By that definition, I'm 100% American. Yeah. Well, so here's why. Part of it is because of family traditions, right? When people do traditions, they keep doing them. So my wife, her dad, born in Poland, came over here. Born and raised in Poland until he was like an adult, like to this day, thick Polish accent. Her mom, she was born in Germany. Her parents were born in Poland. They went to Germany. They had her, and they came over here to America when she was really, really, really young. So as far as I'm concerned, she's Polish American. She's first generation American. And her family are very ethnic. They speak Polish. They eat Polish food. They have Polish cultures, customs, and traditions. During our hand fasting, they did a Polish ceremony. Now, in Poland, you're all Catholic. You're just Catholic. That's just what you are. But they had this ceremony they did with a coin, salt, bread, and wine. And it felt like the way people would do pagan ceremonies today. Modern Reconstruction pagan ceremonies felt the way they did this Polish tradition. Probably comes back and is probably a survival from the Slavic traditions way back when they were quote-unquote pagan, Slavic pagans. It probably kept alive. My mother-in-law remembers there was this curse when you cuss someone out that basically translates into English as "may lightning strike you." And the word they use for lightning is Perun. Perun is a Slavic god. It is one of the main deities in the Slavic pantheon. And he's very similar to the way if you combined Thor and Odin together, it is very, very similar to Perun. But they said this expression, again, culture stays alive. So I think that's why when I say stuff like in the last couple generations, because those customs stay alive. If you've been in America for 5, 10, 15 generations, you adapted to American culture completely, and you don't see the other stuff anymore. My grandma, my Icelandic grandma, she would tell us stories about gorilla, and if we didn't behave, she'd come and throw us in a sack and eat us. Gorilla is an Icelandic tradition. We used to get clothes every year. Now, they called it Christmas, because that's what the Americans call it. Every year, we would celebrate on the 24th. That's what they do in Iceland. They celebrate on the 24th, not the 25th. And we would always get clothes. In Iceland, if you do not get clothes, the Yule Cat will come and eat you. So it's like, she told us about, oh, well, in Iceland they have 12 Santa Clauses. She was talking about the Yule lads. I didn't know it when I was younger. But this stuff, and we were eating food and cuisines from Iceland. Because, again, culture plays a huge role. People don't give up their cultures. So it's infused in everything that we do. Like when we try to become something religious today, when people try to practice religion today, they try to make it a conscious effort to become different and to try to do this thing instead of just embracing your own heritage. And I think that's part of this conversation, right? When you talk about any of the Reconstruction movements, people are so focused on becoming something different instead of seeing what is. Learn, observe, and think about what was the source for why they do those cultural traditions. Why are they doing that? Why are they tossing wine over their shoulder before they drink it? Why are they pouring some out to the ground before they drink it? Why are they saying their blessings or their words or their nice things? When you sneeze, why do they say bless you? Why do they do what they do? Make it your own, adapt it, make it make sense to you. Because if religion starts to become a performance you put on, that is called practicing your path. Versus what I like to do, living your path. And everything that you do, the way that you interact with the world, the way you drink your tea and coffee in the morning, how you interact with your pets and dogs. If you say something before you leave your house, or you're locking your house up. Imbue your spirituality in everything that you do on a regular basis. And now you're becoming, you are living, you are personifying your path. And it is now part of your culture, your tradition, your family, and your way of life. That can be done, that can be achieved, and you'll be a lot more calm, in my opinion, than people who are so uppity and saying, well, in this month, this is how you do it, and if you want to be a Norse pagan, you have to wear a hammer around your neck, and you have to say, Odin damn it, every time something goes wrong. And make sure you put runes on your forehead with makeup, because that makes you more powerful. When people refer to their ancestors, sometimes they try to skip almost 1,000 years. American mutts, such as myself, especially every generation helped shape us, and that's easy to forget. I 100% agree with you on that. And yeah, and if you're skipping like 1,000 years, it's like, what are you talking about at that point? Like your heritage and your culture and stuff is immediately part of where you come from. All right? It's literally where your grandparents are, technically speaking, you could argue 2 generations. Your parents and grandparents raised you, and if you were fortunate enough to know your great-grandparents, maybe them too. But when you go back past that too far, it's different. You never even knew those people. You might see pictures and hear stories, but who you are and what has helped to raise you has been in the last generation or two. Even the Christian ancestors. Yes. Even the Christian ones. Any of them. All of them. That's why Christianity cracks me up the most. Not because it's necessarily the worst religion in the world. I think all religions are... At the core, religion's about control. I don't like religion, and that's why I like to be spiritual. And everyone's like, oh, you're being a spiritual person. Yes, I'm being spiritual. Because I'm trying to find my own connection with divinity. I'm not trying to follow somebody else's written course for being religious, following a religion written by others. These people, what made them so special? How do they know? Who they hear from? People don't give up their culture and traditions. That's why when you see Christianity spread, people practice it in their own fashion. So when you look at different countries, how they practice Christianity is different, vastly different from country to country because of cultural influence. Culture affects religion. It's unavoidable. And I don't think it should be. In Iceland, they have stories, and I've mentioned this, and I repeat stories, okay? It's like I have these favorite things, and I like to repeat them, and I talk, and I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this, which I've said 15 million times in all of my videos, but I'm going to say it again. The Hudefolk, the hidden folk, they have a Christian reason for why they exist, and you can see it in my other videos. I don't need to talk about it again. But yeah, people just, they don't, tradition is part of life. It really is. And that's why a lot of people like to look into it. So, anyway, other thought, questions, concerns? If not, I might go and make myself a snack or something. Figured a nice little hour live is reasonable. And I've had a lot of participation today. I do want to try to get back to making these regular Saturday streams. But I also don't want to make them unbearably long, because if they sit up on my channel and it's like a 2 or 3 hour video, nobody's going to sit through that and listen to it. So, anyway, questions, topics you want to talk about, anything on your mind. It goes to anyone. Don't be afraid to jump in the chat. Everyone's welcome here. You can disagree. You can bring up counterpoints. You can talk about anything you want. And if not, like I said, I'm going to wrap up the live and end it. Finally using my green screen. I've had people suggest using my green screen for a while now. So I finally decided to use my green screen. Figure out, these are photos that I've taken with my phone. I like to take photos as a hobby. And the last couple pictures, not all of them, but a lot of the pictures I've been pulling up have been photos that I have taken with my phone. So I thought this was a neat looking one, so here you go. Okay. On that note, thank you all for hanging out. Another wonderful live. Always good to see folks on. And if you're catching this afterwards, I'm going to try to do some more lives, try to interact with the channel and the videos, watch old videos. It helps the algorithm. My channel's dead, but I'm still here. So if you want to see more of me, continue to participate. Yeah, thank you, Grassland G. Always good to see you. And as always, feel free to reach out on Discord too. Bye for now. May your path be a fruitful one, and I will catch y'all in the next one.